straight. I finally hung up for the first time. Broke one of my hooks off. I'll use tandem hooks. So I've got a snap swivel right here. When I'm bored at the house like last week, the water was all flooded out and stuff, I'll sit here and tie up these rigs. Now, as you can see, that's a really fancy piece of RC Cola cardboard that I've got it wrapped up on. But anytime I break off, I don't want to sit there and take 20 minutes to tie a rig. So I just unravel one of these. Snap to my 3-way crane swivel, and I am back in business, ready to fish again. Saves a little time, makes it a little easier, especially when you're the one operating the boat. Let's keep everything as simple as possible. About 30 seconds. We're ready to go. We're fishing again. Another small one. A few minutes ago we motored back up to make this little run again. We're fishing the outside bend with a little riprap in it. That's what these fish are spawning around. You can see on the bank there's a lot of rocks and stuff like that. These fish will get up under the rocks, and probably not this one, it's too small, but they'll get up under the rocks and lay their eggs and clean out nests and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, anytime you do that, you've got to make sure that you don't go right over the top of your fish. I've had a lot of people tell me, man, we wore them out the first pass and then didn't get anything after that. They just shut off. And if you'll notice, I picked a spot today where there's no boat traffic or anything. And I'm kind of a hermit myself anyway. I don't really like being around other people, especially when I'm hunting or fishing. But part of the reason for that is when there's a lot of people around, a lot of people are just driving over the fish constantly, and they really don't like that much. You can get away with it sometimes if they're really hot, but you're better off to go way around. So, you know, if I come down here one day in a few days or next week and there's a bunch of boats in here, I'll probably go find another hole somewhere. This time of year, outside bends are really the key, especially if they've got some cover on them. Not wanting to cooperate. Pull and drag. Maybe we'll get him in the boat today. Look, that little fish right there made all that fuss. Female, probably 3 or 4 pounds, something like that. See a little color. There we go. Ugly male. My grandmother, I'm told, used to, or my great grandmother, these old heads with all that muscle in them. My granddad told me she used to cook the fish for the kids and then she'd bake the heads in the oven. I don't believe I'm gonna do that today, but another male channel. My liver must have quivered just right.
Ugh. Forgot to say it.
If you know what I mean. It's another little blue.
Hey, Pop.
About there. What, man? Do what?
I said, how do fish taste?
How do they taste?
Yeah.
Tastes pretty good to me.
No, I mean, how do they taste everything?
Catfish tastes with his whiskers. See the little whiskers? They got taste buds on them. So they smell and taste for those. Don't hear quail much anymore. About all gone from this part of the country. Little one. He hooked himself in the dorsal. Went for the front hook. I believe that's line burn there. That's not. That's old scarring. Yeah, that's not mine. That's where he's been rubbing rocks and stuff. Couldn't hang that one any better. Hit me right in my face. Some people may or may not like. I don't really care. But the rib cage comes right down through here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of follow the edge of the ribs around to the base of this fin. So I'll go slightly in front of the dorsal, little curve line in front of that. Come down just like you would filleting bass or anything else. Do this. You know, we used to skin them, go through all the trouble to do that. But I figured out that this is a lot quicker, especially when you're catching a lot of fish. You need to clean them really quickly. Anyway, there's your fillet. And then just come back, clamp this right here. If I'm at home, I'll use a pair of fish skinners. Today we're just cleaning them on the side of the river. That way we don't have any mess to deal with when we get home or anything. And there you have a fillet. Nice clean piece of meat. Ready for the frying pan. The still filming?
Mm-hmm.
The meat, that's a male fish that I just took the fillet off of. The meat on the males, the grain will be a lot more coarse than on the females and than on the blues. After you've eaten as much fish as we have, you can kind of, you know, look at the fillet and tell what fish it came off of. It's kind of ridiculous, but again, this right here, this longer, slimmer fillet with the coarser grain, that's the male channel. Female channel's got a little finer grain, and then the blue, the smaller blues, I don't eat the bigger blues. Anything over 7 or 8 pounds we just throw back, but it has really fine grain. So it's just 3 different looks. There's nothing wrong with any of these. They all taste great. And like I said, we eat the smaller blues, and then the channels, I don't, you know, we eat as many of them as we want. I don't really worry about them. Channel catfish is probably one of the most prolific breeders in North America. So as far as conserving the population or anything, they're not a very high concern. I was just going to talk about my rig a little bit here. I've got 65-pound braided main line. The reason I like braided for my main line is because there's less drag in the current. Use monofilament, you have a lot more trouble keeping your bait down on the bottom. It's gonna act like a parachute. It's gonna blow up off the bottom, especially on really stiff currents like we've got today. Then I've got a big snap swivel. Now, my dad and a lot of other people, my granddad, everybody worries about these snap swivels. I've never had one fail on me, not one time. You just got to use one big enough to do the job. Attached to the snap swivel, I've got a 3-way crane swivel. I used to use just plain 3-way swivels, but then watching a video by a guy named Larry Muse that a lot of you may be familiar with, I saw that he was using these, and they do swivel a lot better. What this allows The snap swivel allows me to change my rigs when I break off like I did a while ago. The 3-way swivel allows the hook to spin all the way around my main line, prevents a lot of tangles. On my lead, these are just homemade lead weights. I've got a cast, used higher weights or whatever. Using 2 ounces today. Jackson was using 3. It's a little easier on somebody who's new at it to use a heavier weight. And I've got 40-pound line going to it. I've got 60-pound line coming off toward my hook, and that's monofilament. I use monofilament because it's a little more abrasion resistant. If you hit limbs, you hit rocks, anything like that, and the monofilament gets nicked up, it's a lot more likely to hold up than this braid is. Also, it's not as flimsy, it's a little more stiff. That keeps you from getting a lot of knots tied while your bait's flailing around in the current and everything. So, once again, I've got 65, 40 to my weight, 60 here. I know this seems complicated and a lot of you are going to laugh at me about it, but this right here is a chain swivel, just a bead swivel. Especially when you're using cut baits, which we weren't doing today, but we will be later. The baits like to flip and roll a lot, and a lot of times it'll twist and knot up, but this right here will prevent a lot of that. There's a bunch of different kinds you can use. And then I've got 50-pound from my chain swivel to my hooks. So I've got 65, 40, 60, and 50-pound line. Now the reason for that is the more money I can save on equipment and tackle, the more I get to fish. I'm just like a lot of people. I don't make a lot of money. I'm a rough old guy with a rough old truck and a rough old boat. So I've got to save as much as I can. My hooks, you know, that's at the end of my rig here. Those cost money. My swivels cost money. Every piece on this costs money or is not really available in my area, so I have to wait a couple of weeks or maybe a week or so to get anything that I order. So if I can just lose a hook or two, or a hook and a swivel, something like that, every little piece of this I save every time I break off saves me money and lets me fish that much more. This rig, just as the current's blowing, the weight will sit right on the bottom and your bait will be off the bottom. Like I said, if there's slower current, you can put a balloon or a float right in here above your swivel or maybe below your swivel. Keep it up off the bottom a little more. When there's no current, really low current situations, instead of bumping the bottom, a lot of times we'll suspend drift. You know, use the trolling motor to move around, or maybe the wind, pick the baits up off the bottom. So there's not one magic bullet, and there's not one magic spot, and there's not one magic bait or anything like that that works. Today we were using livers. We were just catching eating size fish. If I wanted to catch bigger fish, we'd probably be using cut bait, maybe a little different technique, a little different place. Bugs are about to eat us up here, but we'll come back and we'll fish for big fish another day. But today Jackson's learning how to bump here. We just wanted him to get a little entertainment and learn what he's doing and stuff, and just have a little fun today. So we were just trying to target fish between 2 and 7 or 8 pounds today, mostly channel cats. But I'd like to thank Mr. Kenny Fortune down at Big Hill Pond Motors. As I said, I'm just a rough old guy with a rough old boat and everything. Mr. Fortune hadn't been so good to us over the years with taking care of our boats and our repairs and all that kind of stuff. We wouldn't be able to do this, and there's no substitute for time on the water. So he's kept us in business all these years, and we want to thank him for that. I also want to thank Chris Mullins with Semi-Famous Productions for doing this film for us.
Pop sure does know how to back that thing up, if you know what I mean.